oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And that's all logical. That's all rational. I completely get it. But the one thing that you have to understand with investing and never forget is that there is a big difference between a realized loss and an unrealized loss. This is a simple idea. Most of you know the difference, and we'll cover it very quickly so you can make sure we all understand. A realized loss is when you really lost money. An unrealized loss is when you own something where the value has declined, but you haven't actually sold it. So you haven't actually lost any money, you just feel like you have. My brother reads a lot of books too, and he was telling me about a book that he read called How to Get Rich or something like that. And he said that one of the things that the guy wrote in this book that was really interesting to me was he said that a lot of billionaires laugh whenever Forbes comes out with the billionaires list and they list everybody's net worth. He said they look at that list as a joke, according to this author. And I said, well, why is that? He said, well, because a lot of rich people don't sell nothing. They never sell anything. And the Wall Street Journal wrote an article where they talked about a strategy that the rich use, which is buy, borrow, and die. So what does that mean? Well, they go and one of the things that rich people do is they accumulate stuff. They just buy stuff. How do you know the difference between a rich person and a poor person? Well, the rich person has a lot of stuff. Even before money was invented, we knew who the rich people were and we knew who the poor people were. Maybe 100,000, 50,000 years ago, the rich guy was the one who had a lot of cows and a lot of land and whatever, right? So, or a lot of skill, or was very powerful in the community. You had to find some way to understand who's got abundance and who does not. So wealthy people tend to buy things and they tend to hold those things and they own and control those things. So the word borrow, where does that come in? Well, one thing that they do is that because during your life you need money to live, you have living expenses. So to get those expenses, in many cases, they kind of do what Elon Musk did when he went to go buy Twitter. Part of what he did to raise that money was they will borrow against the assets that they own. So they get these loans, and when you're paying back the loan, you know, it's not income because it's a loan, right? So the IRS is like, okay, well, that's just a loan. We're not going to tax you on any of that, right? So rich people are really good at getting away with not paying taxes. Again, that's another area where America is completely and totally rigged. And then they just die. They do what the rest of us do. They die, right? The Grim Reaper is a mass murderer who will eventually kill everybody in this room. Ain't none of us getting out of here alive. Right? It's like a terrible horror movie, right? So the Grim Reaper comes along and then they die, and the IRS has this interesting little rule that basically says that you're not really, if you inherit the assets, there are ways, if you structure it properly, where you're not responsible for the capital gains accumulation or for the wealth accumulation of the person who passed you that asset. So I buy a house for $100,000. I hold that house for 50 years. When I die, it's worth $1 million. I pass it to my child. According to the IRS, their new tax basis is $1 million. It's as if they bought the house for $1 million. So if they sell it for a little more than $1 million, they only get taxed on that little bit of extra, not on the $900,000 that was accumulated in the life of their parent. So these are the little things that wealthy people do. And one of the other things about wealth in general that you really want to hold on to is that it's not that complicated.